Well, folks, we're back in Bristol. Not filming in Cabot Circus because apparently they got a bit of an issue with, photography in there unless it's by, written permission and what have you. So best not to rock the boat. But we are in Cabot's. You know what we're watching today, folks. This is marking the 25th anniversary of the original movie. In 25 years, Jurassic Park has been introduced to and wowed to so many audiences, it's difficult to think of who hasn't seen this movie, although we don't talk about number 3. That doesn't exist. Kind of like Superman 3 and 4 and Batman and Robin. Yes, random, I went there, deal with it. But the question that's being asked is, how much further can they push this? What can they do to take Jurassic to the very next level, evolve it, yet keep it novel and fresh as we remember it from 1993? And it has to be said, in the 25 years since that movie has not aged a day. It's like the first Back to the Future. It's timeless. And I think in 25 years from now, we're still going to look at Jurassic Park and think, how the heck did they do that? It's an amazing movie, and to anyone that's never seen the first one, please go do so before watching this, just so you understand the lineage, the prestige, and the majesty that is one of Steven Spielberg's finest cinematic pieces, which is originated from Michael Crichton's groundbreaking novel. In 2 hours, you will know my exact opinions on Jurassic World 2: Fallen Kingdom. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be saying this at the end, told you so. This is going to be bigger than Infinity War and Deadpool 2. I'll see you in 2 hours. Spared no expense. Well, here we are at the spoiler review. You know how the shtick works by now? Okay. I gave you a chance to leave, so if you're annoyed that this was spoiled for you, I gave you 5 seconds to click off and go somewhere else, so that one's on you. The story for this one is a lot darker, especially when you see this very heartbreaking, haunting image of them leaving Isla Nublar, and the brachiosaur that was seen earlier in the movie by Daniela Pineda's character, just seeing it at the docks, crying out, pleading to be saved, and she's swallowed up by the light and the ash cloud of the lava coming down, and you just see its neck very slowly descending into the cloud. I was like, oh. I don't like to use this phrase too often, but right in the childhood. That was a tearjerker. Because it was the brachiosaur that introduced so many people to Jurassic Park back in 1993 with this very magical and majestic moment of it walking through the open field, and you see Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler seeing a live dinosaur for the first time. So to have this darker approach by taking an iconic... I suppose you could look at the dinosaurs as characters within these movies. So to take that, beloved character, to see her pleading to be saved, and she perishes within the volcanic eruption. I was like, oh. Whoo! Again, that was a tearjerker. And it does use an element from the original book by Michael Crichton, where the dinosaurs end up on the mainland. And I think this is this trilogy's, I suppose, separation and way of distinguishing, okay, we're going in a very different direction this time. This is not going to be on an island anymore, because the island is going to kill itself because of the the once dormant volcano has now become reactive. And while I'm not one to involve real world realism, the fact that you have, you know, the BBC and MSNBC covering whether to save the dinosaurs, and, you know, to have activists around the world saying, hey, these animals have rights as well, you know, they're living creatures just like any of the other wildlife, from lions, tigers, gorillas, giraffes, kangaroos, you know, they all have rights as well. These are living, breathing creatures. Yes, science brought them back from extinction, but every single life form on the planet is important, and that is highlighted with that. You know, the producers and the director talked a lot about empathy for these animals, you know, recognizing they have importance in the world. And, you know, if you're an extinct species that is walking the earth for the first time in tens of millions of years, you don't really want to be put back on the chopping block and then just saying, well, you know, then saying to future generations, well, we had a chance to save them, but we just thought, stuff it, you know, just let nature take its course. And this is something that Ian Malcolm goes into, saying, you know, these creatures were here before us, they were selected for extinction, maybe it's time that they go again. You know, we've played around with nature by messing around with genetic power. We're opening up a Pandora's box. So that's what I mean when they go to some dark places with this movie. And as somebody who's a huge fan of the original movie, which next Monday, June 11, it will be 25 years to the day that Jurassic Park was first released upon the world. For this movie to go in that direction, that takes some balls to do that, considering, I think Double Toasted said something to the effect of that, you know, this is like horror movies for kids. It is and it isn't. Jurassic Park, for all its intents and purposes, is an action-adventure thriller that can be enjoyed by virtually all ages, except for those maybe under 9 and 10, because I remember seeing this when I was a preteen, and there were a couple of scenes where it goes to places, and even X24 Rider said 7 years ago when we did the 18th anniversary, because this was the first time that Jurassic Park was being released on Blu-ray, you know, the scene with the Dilophosaur and Dennis Nedry, it's something that scares him witless. And there is something about the Dilophosaur where it's like, ooh, you know, that's creepy. I want to talk a minute about the fact that they said the last movie was a retcon, and that The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 was being ignored. I'm well inclined for Jurassic Park 3 to be ignored, because, come on, you don't kill the T-Rex off, you know. And here's the thing, folks. I've been marathoning the series going from the first movie up until Jurassic World. I looked on the DVD clock, and the T-Rex was killed off within 26 minutes in Jurassic Park 3. If it had been an hour or the last act of the movie, I could forgive it. But 26 minutes and you emasculate him? What the hell? Off on a tangent again. Isla Sorna is mentioned, and as we know, Isla Sorna played a huge prominent role in The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, because, as Hammond said, you know, Isla Nublar was the showroom, whereas Isla Sorna, west of the island, that was the factory floor. That's where all the magic was created, where all the dinosaurs, first dinosaurs, things like the T-Rex and probably the first Triceratops and what have you, were first hatched on Isla Sorna, nurtured for a few months, and then moved into the park. I don't know what it is. There's something great about Richard Attenborough's delivery. Especially his, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." Even Spielberg loves that. If you ever see the Lost World making of featurette, it says is its own pleasure as an adult, and there is something about the late Richard Attenborough's delivery with that. It's so charming, you know? So that was good. So yeah, we finally have it established that this is not a retcon, and even Hammond's quote from the interview from the end of Lost World is, "These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help. And if we can just stand aside and trust in nature, life will find a way." And this is what James Crommwell's character, Benjamin Lockwood, who was Hammond's silent partner in the late 1980s, and presumably going into the early 90s when Jurassic Park was being set up, because Lockwood invested a lot in the power, in the technique of genetic power, and, wanting to do something power and positive. And the first genetic experiment was done under the lab on his mansion estate. And you can see with Lockwood, he seems like a genuine, well-meaning character. He feels like he has this redemption to pay, because when we first meet him, he's in a wheelchair. He has Hammond's cane with the amber at the end of it. You get the sense the man hasn't got long, and he wants to do something that will redeem himself, not just in Hammond's memory, but redeem himself for, we've brought the dinosaurs back from extinction. The island is going to cause an extinction. Let's stop that from happening, because these are living, breathing creatures. We have an obligation to see to their preservation and their survival. And so I like the way his character was represented with that, so that was good. Now, a lot of people that have been privy to see the first opening 7 minutes of the movie, particularly Clayton Fiorati, who's an awesome human being. You can check a link in the description to his channel below. He's one of my go-tos, particularly with regards to Jurassic Park. Same thing with Altiori. She's very knowledgeable and very insightful with what she has to say. I'll leave a link in the description for you to go find her videos, the things she knows. And the same thing with Clayton, the things they know. Wow. They describe the opening as very bleak, very dark. That it feels like a direct nod to the first Jurassic Park, and particularly as Clayton has mentioned, for the first time in over 20 years, the T-Rex is represented as an antagonistic predator. And it's a callback to the car chase scene with Robert Muldoon taking Ian Malcolm back to the visitor center along with Ellie Sattler. The way the T-Rex just reveals itself through the trees and is chasing the guy in the yellow jacket. I mean, the curse of the yellow jacket, which I think was a nod to Dennis Nedry. Rexy is ruthless in wanting to get after this guy, even so far as to getting the helicopter rope ladder in her mouth, because she's like, "No, you're food. Don't go away. I need food." I was sort of half expecting the submarine to be used whilst they were doing the rescue operation on the island, but no, the submarine gets wasted by the mosasaur because they were trying to retrieve what remained of the Indominus Rex, because at the end of the events of Jurassic World, the Indominus Rex is killed by the mosasaur after being... To be fair, the T-Rex and Blue didn't kill the Indominus Rex, but she took a bit of an ass whooping, and it was the mosasaur that dragged her to her death, and all you see, what's left of the I-Rex, is on is on the lake bed below. And the stupid schmucks don't get the enclosure closed in time. Because they were able to get a DNA sample of the bones of the I-Rex, but the mosasaur wastes. And here's the thing: I know I said in the spoiler-free review that this is one of the tightest stories that there's been. I do have to agree that if it's been 3 years since the events of Jurassic World, shouldn't the mosasaur have died of starvation? Because what would it have done? Hibernate for 3 years, and the submarine comes in and says, "Oh, your food. I'm just going to wake myself up and devour you now." I mean, I looked up and thought, no. Or what I thought was clever was you didn't really see like a huge explosion or major bubbles going to the surface. You just see a light go out and you're like, oh, that's real subtle. So again, the opening, it's everything that everyone has been saying it is. It's very bleak, it's very dark. And to have the T-Rex represented in such a chilling, intense, terrifying creature, that it hasn't been done as such for like I say, the better part of 20 years, that was, that was so satisfying to see, because although the T-Rex is the icon, the mascot of Jurassic Park, and is kind of the template hero, particularly the way Rexy was represented at the end of the first movie, and the way she made a triumphant return in Jurassic World against the I-Rex. At the same time, you're in awe of this creature, but you want to be scared by her, and particularly the way the lighting was done, you couldn't have had a better opening. And even the way that I got the impression that with the last movie, when they did the reveal, it was kind of weak. It was just like, fade in, Jurassic World. But this time, you see lava going all around these rock formations, and it lights up the Jurassic World logo, and then has Fallen Kingdom underneath it, just cooling off. I thought, okay, you're really paying much more attention to detail. You've taken what you've learned from the first movie, and you're improving upon it. So that was impressive to see. Ripper, the Indoraptor. This thing is the I-Rex miniaturized. I mean, the Ripper is still immensely huge for a dinosaur, but compared to the I-Rex, this thing is a lot more dangerous because it's able to get into places the I-Rex wouldn't be able to do. Very intelligent and very insidious. When you see Ted Levine's character getting into her cage as she was, was going to be auctioned off, he believes that she's tranked, that he's tranked, and the animal fakes it. And just sort of has its eye open to the audience, like saying, okay, and then eventually it's just like, surprise, buddy, I'm not asleep. Takes his arm off and then, devours the rest of him. On the other thing about where it's never really explained, I mean, this could be seen as a plot hole or a flaw, I don't know. But where Blue had been injured with the shot to her leg, I don't know if taking the blood from Rexy to give her a transfusion, I don't know if that would have worked. Now, not being a veterinarian or a biologist, I don't know the specifics of that. But that just seemed a little bit off to me. So, hey, if there's anybody who's watching this that actually knows if that would work in a similar way with modern day animals, let me know below. But that just kind of raised an eyebrow with me, so I don't know if that would have worked or not. And here's the thing with the Indoraptor, it wasn't really used as much as people had been hyping. I mean, yeah, it was being used as an auction piece to sell off to people that were looking to use the dinosaurs for military or pharmaceutical applications. You know, it's not an uncommon thing. It's wrong, but it's not an uncommon thing to hear about modern day animals having pharmaceutical testings done on them. So the idea to have that done to dinosaurs is different, but I don't know if I would have gone with that. I mean, I was half expecting for them to expand upon what they were trying to do with the last movie, with the Raptor military training program, to be able to have animals replace drones and weapons in combat situations. They're sort of expanding upon that there. But the impression I got from the trailer is that they would be auctioned off as either guard dogs, as they did in the Jurassic Park sequel graphic novel, which was Raptor, where the raptors are taken off of Isla Nublar and taken into some Brazilian rainforest to some nutcase billionaire that has the raptors as his guard dogs. Or to what a lot of people did in the 70s, you have exotic animals as pets. So imagine the idea of a really greedy, douchebaggy billionaire having a T-Rex as a pet. Which, don't be surprised if they try that again in another movie, so that would have been intriguing. That's going to irk a few people, I think, but at the same time, if you look at it from that perspective, it would make sense for them to go with that. I don't agree with the idea, let's just say for the sake of discussion, that Jurassic Park is real. Let's just go there, and we had the subsequent Jurassic World successor. That is something that would actually happen. You would actually try selling taking these animals off and selling them off for profit. Don't agree with it, but that would happen in a real world setting. So to have that applied here, that does seem to make sense. Now this is where this gets interesting, because there's a huge mystery surrounding Benjamin Lockwood's granddaughter, Macy. Because he kind of cryptically says that you look just like your mother. And Eli, I'm going to get to that character. I got stuff to say about this guy. He goes off on a tangent saying, you're one to go off on like a moral high ground. But at least I wasn't trying to play God like John Hammond and her grandfather, because he says, quote, Benjamin Lockwood never had a granddaughter. He wanted his daughter back, so it's implied that Benjamin had Macy cloned from his dead daughter's DNA. Which, human cloning has been a bit of a taboo subject for about as long as I've known. It's one thing cloning sheep, dogs, and various other animals, but human cloning is kind of like, ugh. I mean, for me, I don't get it, personally. From a scientific perspective, it'd be an interesting thing to see done. Whether it will ever happen in, say, 10, 20 years, I don't know. I just think from a scientific perspective, it would be intriguing. So to have that angle put into this movie where Macy is actually the result of successful human cloning, ooh. I mean, they never come out right and say it, but then again, you just gotta read between the lines. If you're able to see it, you're like, oh. And what is really done well is, for whatever reason, Ripper has it in for Macy. I don't know why. He just seems to go after her, and there's a couple of nice callbacks to the first Jurassic Park, where Ripper is learning how to open doors. And we've seen from the trailers, that creepy image of its hand going after it. I'm like, no. Just no. That's wrong. And one of the things that they had talked about in trailers, featurettes, is that they talk about the kind of gap and the advancement of Blue and Owen's, I don't want to say relationship, but bonding. There is definitely a bond there. Blue is a lot wilder than what she was in Jurassic World, because she's been out in the wild for 3 years now. She's not as forthcoming and responsive to Owen when she sees him for the first time in 3 years. She does come back round to him eventually, especially with the way that she sticks her neck out for him when she takes on Ripper twice. Once in Macy's room, to which Owen and Macy make a getaway out there, and the second time where she leaps over the glass skylight, for lack of a better description, and impales Ripper on one of the skeletons below. So that was an impressive feat to see. One aspect I felt was played well is when you see Claire having the moral dilemma. Because they have a gas leak where one of the scenes where Blue has gotten out of her cage because Franklin had, had the courage to just, step out of his scaredy cat zone a little bit. It caused a bit of a fracas with Blue taking people out, and one of the security guards shoots at one of the cooling canisters, and gas starts leaking. It gets to a point where it starts seeping into the basement where the dinosaurs are caged up below and they're suffocating. Now, I understand Owen's perspective with this. If this had been on Isla Nublar and just let them roam free over the island, it wouldn't have been an issue. Not at all. Because it's not going to cause panic, chaos, more than likely potential fatalities with regards to other wildlife and civilians. But at the same time, you kind of have the understanding of what Claire is going through, because her whole point of setting up the dinosaur protection group, she wanted to save them. So she's caught between a rock and a hard place. She doesn't want them to die, but at the same time, she doesn't want it on her head to cause civilian casualties. Whereas Macy's like, look, I'll make the decision for you. Because this is a girl who loves dinosaurs and didn't want to see them go. And I'll touch upon visual effects in a minute, but just to see this crowded scene where all the dinosaurs are kind of bunched up together, all those that managed to survive, just to see them get out, it was kind of interesting to see. And I kind of noticed they acknowledge continuity by when Rexy goes into her cage to go down the elevator, there's a goat waiting, and I'm like, okay, saw what you did there. So, writing, aside from a few little pieces that, raised an eyebrow with me, which I didn't really know what to make of, as far as writing's concerned, it's definitely up there with the first movie. Does this make it equal or superior to the original? It's too early to say. I'd say it's definitely equal with Jurassic World. I think, considering the amount of time that had passed between Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World, that was the right amount of time just to get the awful aftertaste of 3 out of our mouths. I think that was a vastly superior story. As to whether, is it going to be as good as the first movie? Time will tell. I still think Jurassic Park is the one to beat, whereas Jurassic World and Jurassic World 2 Fallen Kingdom are on equal playing fields. So this movie is, definitely well written. So yeah, I have nothing further to say with regards to writing on this. Writing was near enough as solid as it'll get, but there's just a couple of little holes in there that, I think they could have done a little bit more trying to iron out, but at least this doesn't have as many plot holes as most MCU movies. You're welcome. And before I move on to acting, stay for the post-credits scene. Now, while it's kind of wandering into territory that other movies are already doing this, at the same time, it's going to give us a glimpse of what we're going to see for Jurassic World 3. And to see pteranodons in Las Vegas, I don't think this is going to be one of those times with what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is going to be seen around the world in the next movie. So, and as I've said before, they could have saved the T-Rex breaking into the zoo and roaring at the lion just for this movie. Don't have it in the trailers, don't have it in the TV spots. This is something you could have gone into the theatre and be like, and go like, dude, you really need to go see this. There's this awesome scene where the Tyrannosaur breaks into the zoo and is roaring at the lion. Really? Yeah. But they did say that the Circle of Life mentioned nothing about this. So yeah. The credits are a little bit long, but then again, you got to think about all the CG artists, all the sound editing, assistants for various actors, producers, writers, all that jazz, all the people they need to acknowledge and credit. But just wait for it, because I'm telling you, it'll be worth it. Well, Chris Pratt is back as Owen once more, just as amazing as he was in the last movie, if not more so. But when we see him at the start of this movie, you can see that he's jaded, he's trying to move on from the events of the last movie, and Claire's trying to bring him back in. He's like, nah, I really don't want to do this. And this is like the only douchey thing that we see of him in this movie, which I suppose is a little bit of character development. He just says, well, let him die. And Claire's like, why have you got to be like that? You raised Blue. You watched her go from infancy to see her fully grow. And he and Claire are what make this movie work. Whereas with the last movie, it was kind of everybody coming together. This movie, you see everything from their perspective. You see the type of person that Claire has grown into, where she's gone. It's kind of a representation of how Hammond was with the first and second movie. In the first movie, he's all about making the profit and entertaining people, whereas with the second movie, he's an advocate for the dinosaurs. He wants to save them. He wants to keep them so that it doesn't interfere with humans. Claire is exactly the same. With this, she wants to save them because she knows that there is a moral responsibility that she feels obligated to do, and that's why she founded the Dinosaur Protection Group. So, like I say, Chris is just amazing, as he was as Owen. I feel like he's going to be like typecast for 3 major roles now. I mean, obviously, Owen Grady, then as Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy in the MCU, and as Emmett from the Lego Movie, which that movie sequel comes out next year, so that should be intriguing. But I really like Owen. Owen, to me, is like a mixture of Alan Grant, Robert Muldoon, and a little bit of Ian Malcolm. There are these sensibilities about the characters. Whereas with Ian Malcolm, he's totally against the idea of dinosaurs being back on the planet. But at the same time, you sort of see from Alan Grant's perspective of, we should treat these animals with respect, and do what we can to make sure that dinosaurs and humans are kept separate. So I can't really say anything too much because Chris makes this work with the humor and the heart that he shows as Owen, and he's just building upon what he did with the last movie. Both him and the character are just very likable. So yeah, Owen did great. Bryce Dallas-Howard is back as Claire, and this is a character that's gone through a lot of changes since the first movie. Like I mentioned with Owen just now, whilst describing her, I should say, Claire is a lot like Hammond from the second movie. She's gone from capitalist to naturalist in wanting to save these animals, and I feel like her appearance is somewhat of a nod to Julianne Moore's Sarah Harding from the second movie, in not only the appearance of what she's wearing, but to the hair that she's had done up. Although Sarah Harding had a ponytail most of the time, it's the hair colour that's, like I say, seems to be like the most homage to that character. And Claire is extremely likable in this. It's almost like there's quite a lot of Owen's characteristics in her character now. Whereas before in the first movie, like I mentioned, she's just all about the money. She just sees the dinosaurs as numbers on a spreadsheet. Now she's all about looking at them as animals, having empathy with them, and, wanting to save them, making sure that her children, her children's children, and their children's children get to see dinosaurs in the future, because it's like, hey, we brought these animals back. We have a moral responsibility to keep them on this earth, to make sure they don't go back extinct again. So, and her and Chris, that they have the same brilliant chemistry as Jeff Goldblum and Julianne Moore did from the second movie. To see, Laura Dern and Sam Neill, they had decent chemistry from the first movie, but I feel like there's more of a personable chemistry and relationship between Owen and Claire. And there's a couple of times where Owen seemingly seems disinterested in Claire, but there's other times where he's faking as if he's uninterested, just to make particularly when they're just waking up, just see him watching over her. He's just about to try to kiss her, then she wakes up and he's just like, okay, act as if I'm asleep, and she's looking to see if he's okay. So it's got that will they, won't they, will they, won't they, won't they, will they, kind of like Mulder and Scully, but those two still have eyes for each other, but there's that give, there's that tension. So I really like the chemistry that's played between them, and I don't think they could have chosen better actors to portray those two characters and the relationship, if you will, because they did have a relationship, but then they broke up, and you know how that goes. So Bryce Dallas-Howard, really impressed. Daniela Pineda as Zia Rodriguez, who is a paleo-veterinarian, basically a dinosaur doctor, dinosaur vet. And I like this girl. She's just such a snarky badass with the way she has such wit and chemistry with Justin's character, Franklin. She's basically the token tomboy in this movie. The moments where you see her acting all sort of starry-eyed and have this innocence is when she sees the Brachiosaur for the first time. In the same vein how we all felt when we saw the Brachiosaur for the first time 25 years ago. And the way she just moves mountains to save Blue after she got shot earlier in the movie, which I kind of looked, I'm like, ooh, guys, you didn't need to go there. I mean, because everyone loves Blue. So, like I say, I can't really add anything with Daniela. Very talented actress, and I hope she's in the next movie, because that will be something to see, considering the direction that they're going with this series. So I'll be waiting eagerly for June 2021 just to see how that pans out. So far, so good. Then we come to Justice Smith, who plays Franklin Webb, who is an IT specialist. Because he's a nerd. Really, guys? He's a bit of a scaredy cat. He's a little bit of a germaphobe with the way he's putting like this cooling down lotion, because he's in a hot climate when he comes to Isla Nublar for the first time. And the way that he's freaking out when he sees the baryonics come into the tunnel, I'm like, okay, dude, you're making Claire look masculine. It's like, come on, dude. You don't need to do that. I mean, as mentioned, he has good chemistry with Daniela. We're probably more than likely to see that happen if they're back for the next movie. So that should be interesting. And he goes, like I say, in the writing, he goes for his own little bit of development, not in the same level or context that Bryce did with Claire in the last movie, because the only thing that Franklin does that kind of gets him to step out of his comfort zone and actually show some courage is when he clobbers the guy over the back of the head just to stop, Blue from being taken. That's about like the only time he does something. I mean, as the IT specialist, he shines in trying to save the dinosaurs from suffocating and having all of the tracking beacons activated. That's all in their implants. I think he could have done more if he was given more material, but the material he was given, he was kind of made to look a little bit of a pansy. Just saying. As I mentioned earlier, James Crommwell playing Benjamin Lockwood, who was Hammond's silent business partner in developing the technology and setting up Jurassic Park. As I said, this is a guy who's out for redemption. He truly believes that he needs to do something in order to save these dinosaurs from going extinct, and just to be able to do something for for generations of the future, so they can say they actually did something. And he intended to take the dinosaurs off to another island without fences, without any kind of without any kind of human restraint, so they could just live on the island peacefully, so they could just go about their business. And he has a bit of an axe to grind when he coaxes the truth out of Eli after what his granddaughter saw. Benjamin is played brilliantly by James. I mean, he really does give one of his best performances as a man that's... He's not necessarily at the end of his life, but you can tell that he's seen better days with the way he's having to take his medicine, when he's hooked up to a heart monitor, when he's up in bed. You get the impression that the stuff that was happening with the dinosaurs to be auctioned off was going to be done by him, but when it's revealed he knew nothing about it, and he learns that all of this is happening under his own roof, he's like, okay, we need to talk. Seriously. I'd like to have seen more of what they could have done with this character, just to be able to explore the past. And I like that when Claire visits the mansion for the first time, you do see this this very nice painting of Richard Attenborough as John Hammond. So it's paying knowledge and respect to the past, and the fact that the first genetic cloned experiment was done in the labs underneath the mansion. So I like that some questions were being answered, but it also raised a few more. But like I say, as for acting with James Crommwell, I mean, he's one of the finest actors to have gone into Hollywood. I mean, he was one of the few saving graces of Spider-Man 3. That's the only time I'm going to mention that train wreck. And of course, James Crommwell was also the farmer in Babe. And he was one of the stooges in the Season 3 episode of Knight Rider in 10 Wheel Trouble. So for those that are on my subscription list that are fans of Knight Rider and Night Watch, he was credited as Jamie Cromwell. He kind of reminds me of a slightly lankier version of Rodney Trotter. If you're an Only Fools and Horses fan, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just waiting for somebody to put in the comment section below when I said I go, Rodney, you plonker. Oh dear. Can you imagine that? Jurassic Trotter. Oh no. So like I say, Cromwell killed it. Same thing could be said with Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm. His cameo comes in two parts, at the beginning and the end. He serves his narrative just before they go to Isla Nublar to take them off the island, and he's there at the end saying, you know, how many times do I have to say this? Genetic power is like the most awesome force that the planet has ever seen, and we're being irresponsible with it. You know, what Pandora's box have we opened by bringing the dinosaurs to the mainland? You know, we're going to have to make changes to be in a world where we have to coexist with dinosaurs, because he was completely against the idea in the first Jurassic Park all those years ago, even more so in The Lost World. And you can only imagine where he's at right now. He's just like, when are you people going to listen to me? You know? But, you know, in the 21 years since he's played Ian Malcolm, it's like he just stepped right back into character, like The Lost World was yesterday, and he just came back in as if nothing happened. So that was pleasant to see. I hope Jeff does another movie. And here's the weirdest thing. I felt like with the way he was represented visually, it's almost like he became John Hammond from a visual perspective. Even the way he says, "Welcome to Jurassic World," it almost sounded like a little bit of a clip in his delivery. It sounded like he was trying to sound like Hammond, so I was very appreciative of that. Then again, it's Jeff Goldblum, you know, he's awesome. I'm seeing a movie role of Toby Jones where he doesn't phone it in for once. I haven't forgotten about Titanic from 2012, nor have I forgotten about your role from Captain America, the First Avenger. I mean, everyone else in that movie is fine, but I felt like he was phoning it in. But as Gunnar Eversole, he puts on a very good, convincing American accent, and as the auctioneer, he's just really moral neutral. He has no scruples whatsoever, trying to sell these dinosaurs off for profit. But he gets his just desserts at the end when he's eaten up by Ripper, because Ripper smashes the code input display at the side of the elevator, and he just comes and is like, "Oh, hello, dinner." So I didn't, you know, that was fine for me. But as far as his performances goes, like, well done, Toby. You've actually proven to me you have range, and you didn't phone it in for once. Welcome to the ex-Danny Houston club of phoning it in. But yeah, Toby Jones, well done. The guy's got range, so yeah, well done. B.D. Wong as Henry Wu does well with the brief appearance that he has and the material he had to work with. I feel like he's a little bit douchier in this one, but at the same time, you kind of admire the man's, I don't want to say principles, but mindset of, look, if you want me to perfect this creature, I need more material to work with, and you're not giving me that. So I did enjoy that aspect, but I feel like we need to see more of what he could do, considering the heel turn that he made in the last movie. I mean, when we first saw Henry Wu 25 years ago, he's just a loyal genetic scientist for John Hammond, and you know, he's happy to be there. Now you're like, okay, you have an agenda. That's not good. So yeah, I hope he's around for the third movie. Whether he will, I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, he was good for the material that he was given. Ted Levine plays a seasoned merc for hire in Kevin Wheatley, and I feel like his role is somewhat of a nod to Roland Tembo from Jurassic World, from Jurassic Park 2. The only difference is Tembo is doing it for the thrill of the hunt. This guy is doing it for the paycheck, particularly where he's going around with certain animals and cutting teeth out of their jaws, for part of his trophy collection. But, he gets his reprimand when Ripper not only rips off his arm and eats it, but takes the rest of him as well. So that was somewhat lethargic to see, considering the way he treated Blue and Owen earlier in the movie. But, he did a decent performance with what he had to work with. And, yeah, good performance. Isabella Sermon as Macy Lockwood. Like the actress who played Laura in Logan last year, Isabella really, really surprised me because she has such range and layers as an actor, because she's able to give so much emotion and so much conviction for an actress that young that you root for her throughout the movie. And her and James Crommwell, there's brilliant chemistry as the grandfather and the granddaughter. And you can see the empathy and the love and fascination that she has with dinosaurs, with the way that she discovers about Owen and Blue, and to how she's really creeped out by Ripper. And, it takes a talented actor to pull off that kind of convincing performance at that young age, and she does it in spades and then some. So don't be surprised if you see more in the forthcoming years from this young actress, because this is the next Chloe Moretz. Mark my words, she's the next Chloe. So yeah, I was impressed. As for Eli Mills, played by Rafe Spall, his character is well-meaning enough, but I felt his heel turn came way too early when meeting with Gunnar Eversole, and the guy, once you see exactly what he is, you just wanted to see him get eaten, and that happens. When he's trying to make off with the specimen for the Indominus Rex, Rexy has a little something to say, and it's just like, takeout. So, not really much to say with regards to Eli, because he was a pretty forgettable villain as far as human characters are concerned with regards to the Jurassic Park series. I mean, when Dennis Nedry is more memorable than you fail. As we usually do when we review movies, we talk a lot about score. Because if you look at anything, whether it's the first Jurassic Park, whether it's the first Superman, or Back to the Future, the score is one of the key components that makes these movies what they are. And, whether it's moments of tenderness, moments of joy, moments of terror, or moments of sadness, the composer for this movie, like I mentioned earlier in the writing, when you see the Brachiosaur pleading at the docks to be saved, the score really elevates how tragic, sad, sorrowful, call it what you will, Michael's score, it tugged on the heartstrings. And of course you have John Williams' score as ever in the background, including the variations that Michael had done throughout Jurassic World, particularly at the end when you see the T-Rex triumphantly reclaiming ownership of her throne and the island. That was just so well done. So for the score, I have nothing bad to say about it, and it really elevated the dark scenes, particularly when dealing with Ripper. Now there's a guy I wouldn't want to bring home to meet my family, or anybody for that matter. And as for special effects, well, the one thing that the Jurassic Park series has never failed to do is is in the special effects department, and this one is no exception. Everything's done expertly, everything's executed the way it should be. So I have nothing bad to say about special effects. I mean, I think it's one of the very few things that you can't do wrong in a major Hollywood motion picture these days. So yeah, they were good. Now, I've mentioned before with the writing, it's such a haunting and beautiful visual with the way you see the Brachiosaur, who I'm going to name Paula. If you ever watch Prehysteria, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because the Brachiosaur was named Paula in that. There's this very haunting image of her dying in the volcanic ash cloud of red and orange, and you just see the silhouette of her neck falling down into the base of it below. ILM went above and beyond. Like I mentioned, with the way the T-Rex was represented, the chase scene is executed expertly, especially at night, with the way it's made to look intimidating, with the way the light is bouncing off of it. I mean, it's definitely the first time in years the T-Rex has been represented like that in a chase scene, probably since the first Jurassic Park movie, especially with the way you see its head poked through the trees and the guys running for dear life. That was just expertly done. And just a very surreal image of seeing the downed Ford Jurassic Park Explorer, where it fell from the trees so many years ago, where Alan Grant and Tim Murphy were escaping from the trees, where it had landed after falling so far from the road of the T-Rex paddock, just to see the lava melting it away. It was almost like a very symbolic image of, this is, the door being closed on this chapter of Jurassic Park. This is the past making way for the present. And that was just such a symbolic image. You're like, ooh, we're actually going to go there. So, visual effects, it's definitely an evolution from what has gone before. Now, that's not to say that the visual effects that had been done before were poor. No, far from it. Because even when you look at the visual effects from the first Jurassic Park, all these years later, they still hold up incredibly well, even though that was 1993 when they were doing that, because that was experimental times. But that movie broke so much ground that you had James Cameron inspired to do that for Titanic, and George Lucas being inspired to do that for the Star Wars prequels. So Jurassic Park has inspired a lot of people in the 25 years, and I've no doubt this movie will probably inspire more movie directors, writers, artists, film composers that have been inspired by the originals, and you're going to see future movie makers that are going to see this and be like, I want to make something like that, or I want to have something that is close to the caliber of this. Because one thing that Jurassic Park has always been able to do, with the exception of number 3, is they always elevate the quality in how a movie is made. The things I will give number 3 credit for, if it didn't have Sam Neill, it would have been worse. It was well shot, well edited, and well sound mixed, particularly with regards to vocals, dialogue, and sound effects, and the creature roars. But from a writing standpoint, that movie's terrible. Guilty pleasure at best, but you try to compare Jurassic Park 3 to, say, Jurassic Park and then Jurassic World in this movie, and it's night and day. You can't even put it in the same ballpark. It's like... It's like comparing Rocky 5 with Rocky 6. I mean, nobody likes Rocky 5. That's why they went and did Rocky Balboa back in 2006, 2007. So, yeah. In terms of visual effects, I couldn't find anything wrong with this. Particularly, this visual display of all the dinosaurs escaping the Lockwood Mansion. And especially to seeing Eli getting eaten by the T-Rex. I'm not one who's one for gore and deaths in a movie like most horror fans, but that was quite satisfying to see, to see him get his at the end of the movie. Yeah, I can't really add anything to that. And like I say, the visual of seeing Rexy roar against Simba at the end of it, that was something to behold. Blue roaring at a Northern Californian suburb. And, like I say, in the post-credit scene, to seeing the pteranodons flying over Vegas, ooh, that's going to cause some problems. But, all in all, folks, this was such a faithful and wonderful addition to the original movie from 25 years ago, and it's a great way to mark the silver anniversary of one of the greatest movies and the greatest film franchises in cinematic history. Jurassic World 2 Fallen Kingdom gets a must. And that's all I've got to say for that. For those that are in the United States, and particularly Kaiju Noir, who's living over in Japan, trust me when I tell you guys, you are going to love this movie and then some, because this movie, it actually stepped out of its comfort zone, and I don't think they could have picked anybody better than J.A. Bayona to do this movie justice. I think he was the right guy that they were looking for, just like so many years ago, Steven Spielberg was the right guy to do the first Jurassic Park. He had a specific vision of how he wanted that movie done, and Bayona did exactly the same with this. He had the right look of what he wanted to do with the movie, he had the right perspective, and he delivered in spades. Jurassic World 2 Fallen Kingdom is on general release everywhere now in the United Kingdom. If you haven't seen it yet, why are you wasting more time watching this video? Go out and watch it. You're going to be bowled over and then some. Until next time, this is MJ Knight signing off from Real Features.